Hello, welcome again to the Hats of the 20th Century Museum and more. And when we last saw you, it was part 4 of 1910. We had finished up the actual hat show and started talking about the display items, working backward from 1910 and going that way. So we talked about several of these hats that are up here already. We didn't talk about this one because I had found it in this box here, and so put it out on display. And it's a very unusual thing with a strap that's not elastic. Didn't seem as it used to be either. It looks a little bit, to me, I'm suspicious it could be something a lady might have worn as a motoring hat, but I tried to find out on Googling and I can find nothing, so who knows? But anyway, we talked about that hat, this hat. Now we've talked about her, a feathered toe for the fellas, auto cap and the goggles for riding around their new Tin Lizzies. We didn't talk about this kind of a mob cap, but not really. It's just a cotton bonnet of sorts. You see it in pictures of people using them for cleaning purposes to keep their hair clean, but also I found it in a museum of war, and it's a World War I nurse's bonnet. So there's a darn good view of it. I think I might have another no, that's a different thing. That's the folded kerchief that nurses also wore. Anyway, we talked about that type of hat, a toque, beaver. Oh, no, never mind. The type that the suffragists wore, a lady's boater. This one with the glass beads that form a buckle, a beautiful buckle. We had that down. I put it on, or maybe I didn't, but it isn't very attractive on, so we're not going to bother again. Another old boater that was a lady's style, you can tell from the lining. And I think that's all we did there. So we're going to remember what we talked about. Try not to talk about them again. But let's go over here. I'll put my pool cue doorknob cane away. This time I want to talk about where I got my information. And it's from these reproduction Sears catalogs. And even though they're reproductions, they are even kind of fragile because they were reproduced in 1969. And that's 50 years ago, the way I count on my fingers. This one's a 1902, also done in 69, a 1908. And these two were done in the 70s. They're so small that they're not nearly as interesting or easy to look for things as these two. And I've marked a few. Let's go through here quickly so that you can, it's Sears, you could buy absolutely anything from clothing, dishes, photography, musical instruments, jewelry, tools, right down to chickens, and they'll buy your furs to make fur coats, furniture. It's really something. There we go. You could just spend a week looking at every page. But I did mark a few things that I wanted to show you. A stereoscope, I caught that. 24 cents for a stereoscope. We're not going to get that. And up here on the piano, we'll get to it. We don't need to go up there. I do have a stereoscope, so it's interesting to see it on a catalog page. Here we have phonographs. They're calling them graphophones that play the circular tubes. And I do have some of those too. We'll get to that. Some Edison tubes. I get the other catalog. They have the flat discs in this one. What do we have here? We have a Parlor Grand, an upright Parlor Grand at $100. This is very similar to the one I have here, which will look harder when we turn the corner here. A beautiful old Parlor Grand, and a treadle sewing machine, $23 for that. Different prices, but about $20. And I have one very similar to that. Mine was from Montgomery Ward's. It's a Damascus, whereas this is a Minnesota. All right, that's all I had marked here for you in this book. In this book, we're going to look again at the talking machines, because this one has the discs that go around as well as the cylinders. And these first records were very thick, and I have a couple of those. I have a couple of everything. My things aren't always in the best condition, and I'm not an expert on everything, but I just grabbed everything I found interesting. This one is the candlestick telephone, which I do have one of in the middle of the room, 1908, so you can get yourself a candlestick telephone. Mine has been made into a lamp, but then that's all right, because of that it survives. If it was just a telephone, it would have gone in the garbage. When my uncle pulled them out of the garbage to make lamps, is what I'm trying to say. Here we have cameras, and believe it or not, I should find it in here. We have portable cameras in 1901 even. And the only photograph albums I was able to find were these, instead of these big, beautiful, fat ones like this. I couldn't find any of that in the catalog pages. Although, I know I've seen it, so I just don't know where I should be looking. But they have the very thin ones, and also souvenir postcard albums. I'm going to step back just a second and get the postcard album. We'll get that taken care of. Here's a postcard, souvenir cards. Here's a different style, long and thin. Never been used. And postcards were very important to people back then. Here was the type of smaller. Everybody knows about that type of little photograph album that you can get from the Sears catalog, apparently. This one has been autographed as a souvenir from Fort Dodge, Iowa. I was going to show you how just about everything, where to put those, everything in the way of a photo is also a postcard. Every photo you turn over practically, unless it's on a hard cardboard like on the piano there, is a postcard. So no wonder postcard albums were important and a popular thing. Okay, so I'll come back. Let's leave that there. Took it apart once today. Anything else? Something back here. What was it? Oh, I see. When I go through these catalogs, I see where I got the enlargements that I Xeroxed for my books. There's a great big Sears. Wow. 1908. My books, I made these Xerox books because I got so tired of pawing through all of my old ephemeral paper things and being so hard on. Here's where I enlarged the teddy bear thing that was in the Sears catalog here, where the little teddy bears are, hello Central, give me Teddy. That's the teddy bears calling President Teddy Roosevelt, because he was the reason for why we had teddy bears, and that's another story I'll tell when we get over there. So this is my Xerox book. I showed you page now and then through the hat show that we did. But this is how I made it handier for me to refer to what I'd seen, read, and heard. And it's about as good as a catalog. Kind of a condensed version of catalogs and magazines. My 1900 book. Now, let's zoom down over here. Okay, first we'll go where I dropped the photograph album right on top of little, very famous pictures of this era is Cupid Awake and Cupid Asleep. So everybody knows those. We'll put that back on it. And then on top of that was a little box called a Phoenix Muffler. I took a picture of what's on the inside here. There we go. Or a yellower one. Turned out yellow. The Phoenix Muffler, 1908. Very popular item to keep ladies warm around the neck. There we go. Got that. Oh, and a hanger. We'll do that while we're here. This old hanger that I picked up from somewhere for nothing, and then find out that that's really this age, 1903. Beautiful old curtain. I think it seemed to be, if I remember what I had here, it's divided in the middle as though you'd put it between your parlor and your dining room or whatever. Now let's come over, and I'm going to show you some of the magazines that I looked at and found pictures out of. First, the oldest is a Cosmopolitan magazine. 1895, and I didn't pay much for it, but it's so odd. It's got different size pages, different texture of pages. A lot of things in it, though. I feel like it's a compilation of several months or something. I don't know, but anyway, that's about as old a magazine as I have. 1895. Get that right. All right, and here's a Harper's Weekly, 1888. Beautiful artwork on the cover. Lots of beautiful artwork inside. All pen and ink. Missed it. Can't look at every page because there just isn't time. All right, you get the idea. Harper's Weekly. I recommend anybody that likes this stuff to go to the antique store or get on eBay and buy some old magazines. They're just wonderful. Woman's Home Companion, 1901, has the usual amount of interesting information, some photography too. Look at all that. So if you really want to know really what was going on, a magazine and a catalog will prove it to you. It's not some interpretation by someone who wrote a book or a movie that was put out, and I watch movies and I think, yeah, that's not really the right hat, but oh well. Here we have another Woman's Home Companion, same type of thing. This is 1904. You see the styles progress just a little bit as you go up the calendar here. 1905, Woman's Home Companion. This one I found interesting. After I'd gotten it for only $1, I wondered, why was it $1.50? That's so expensive. These are all just 10 cents. It's because it's a reproduction. I looked and looked and looked, and I can't see who reproduced it and when they did it, but they reproduced this magazine, which was nice. Made it a little less fragile for us. Had cost 10 cents in 1905. Here's one that is the same year, 1905. Some beautiful view into the fashions and the things they used, the things they could buy. You find out from looking at these ads and old things that they had, look at that elaborate wedding cakes and stuff, but they had things like paper towels and toilet paper and feminine products that you wouldn't have thought of as early as they did. It wasn't as barbaric as we imagined. And then this is 1909, a good literature, and it's really pretty much good for ads. And I recognize some of these as having been in my Xeroxed books. They love to get your hair to grow. Somewhere here I had one marked about hair growth. Let's see if I can find it again. And then there we go. There's a big ad for hair growth. It was very important to still have a lot of hair in 1909 and through the teen period for the most part, because that was the Edwardian period and the big hairdos of the Gibson girl. All right, that'll do it for this time. We'll take up in the piano area next time. Thank you.